We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
And always feel that your life has ultimate significance.
The only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Welcome to Civil Action. Today I have a very, very interesting candidate. He's running for mayor. Very good friend of mine. I've known him for 20 plus years. He's taken time out of his busy schedule to come here on Civil Action to talk about some of the things that he believes that are important for the city of Pittsburgh and how he wants to affect change. So with that, I introduce you to mayoral candidate Tony Moreno. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, Todd. Thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, man, listen. Anytime I get an opportunity to have, a big wig like you on my show, I'm all in. anytime I get that opportunity, I'm all in, man. So thank you. I've known you for forever, man. I mean, I've been practicing criminal law for 27 years, and I feel like I've known you for every one of them.
We came up together.
Yeah, we did, man. And now, I don't even know where to start, but I guess the obvious place is that I hear that you're running for mayor. Is that true?
Yes, I am. I'm running for mayor in 2021. I retired in 2018, and
all right.
I just started seeing, you look at things differently when you're out of, specifically in law enforcement. When you come out, you start to have different realizations, and you start looking at what's going on around you and seeing how the mayor was responding to our city was really disheartening to me. So,
well, you know what? Before you get too deep into that, why don't you tell our younger guests who you are and what your background is?
Okay. I'm not from Pittsburgh originally. I'm from LA. I'm from a town called Whittier. Whittier is exactly 20 miles south of the LA airport and 15 miles inland. I am Mexican and Native American or Indigenous American. They changed the wording on that. And I only found that out through when I did a DNA test, but I always knew I was a Spanish Mexican, and that's my father, and my mother's Scottish Irish.
Well, tell me what did you do? I mean, I obviously know how I met you, but for those who don't know, tell them a little bit about your work background.
Well, I joined the military, and that's what took me out of Southern California, and then I came to Pittsburgh. I got married. She wouldn't go to California, so this is where I picked. This is where I landed, and I became a police officer. I always knew I wanted to do that because of just a feeling of service I had. So I landed on the north side, and that's where I started my career. I worked a wagon, and then I moved my way up. I fought my way up into the narcotics unit, and then I ended my career walking a beat downtown. I voluntarily left the narcotics unit, and that's where I finished. I started seeing and helping more people than I think I did more downtown than I did in the entire, I can't say that, but I really, that's where I landed when I finished, and that kind of segued into what I'm doing now.
Okay. So obviously, your goal is to become mayor. I mean, there are people, obviously that know you and some that don't. For the people that don't know you, what is it about you that they should know, and why should they elect you as the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh?
I'm not politically motivated in my general life. So this is all new to me. I'm used to just seeing a problem and fixing it, or coming into to mediate people's problems and helping them get through the things that are happening. Now, in doing that, it gives me a very broader perspective. I was able to live in areas of the city, all over the city. During my career, I spent most of my waking hours professionally in these communities in the city and seeing what's going on. And I understand, I don't know what it's like to be born into some of these neighborhoods, and I'll use Bedford's dwellings for an example, but I know what it's like to be there. So I have a perspective to look at it and see why things are coming out the way they are, and why people are angry, and what's going on, and how it gets addressed by our leadership and the failures that are happening there. And so you start looking into that, and I see one big problem is employment. I can use Stanton Heights as an example.
Okay.
Stanton Heights is probably the most diverse section of the city. It runs about 53-46, 53 Caucasian, 46 Black or mixed. Now, the common denominator in that is employment. There's only 2.3% unemployment in that neighborhood. And I'm sure people go through Stanton Heights, and Stanton Heights is a nice neighborhood. I originally lived in Morningside, which is right below it.
Okay.
I live on the north side now. But when you see Stanton Heights, you see a coming together of people, and everybody works. So you care more, you have ownership, you have financial freedom, and you have mobility. And it's something that I need to bring, instead of the political aspect of saying, we're going to provide for you. We need to show that we're going to give you the opportunity to work, to be able to be mobile, to be able to purchase and buy homes instead of gentrifying our homes. You know, gentrification is something I really didn't understand until I started really doing this. And in such a big way that it's shredding the legacies of our Black communities here. 7,000 people, 7,000 Black families got moved out of the East End, replaced by 4,000 white millennials. Now, there's something happening there, and it's wrong. They are buying these homes and pushing these families out instead of giving them the ability to buy them.
So, not to cut you off, obviously,
That's right.
but I want to talk about some things that, you know, you mentioned Black communities. Obviously, you're a police officer, and you've been a police officer for how long?
I was a police officer for 24 years. I've been in law enforcement for about 30.
Okay. So what is your take on the recent protests regarding Black Americans and the relationship that they share with the police, particularly the city of Pittsburgh police?
Well, I'm just tremendously saddened and disappointed in our leadership, because there was a moment where everybody was in agreement here. Everybody across the board was appalled and disgusted by the George Floyd incident with Derek Chauvin. To me, that it was just a flat out murder. That's a whole different story how that's going to go down. But voices needed to be heard. People were hurt and they had to come out, and they were peaceful protesters that just wanted to be heard. And that was hijacked by violence. And our leadership allowed it to happen. I happen to have inside a viewpoint about how these things happen. I've been involved with them. That was hijacked. And what we're looking at now is a complete turnaround of what is supposed to be done. We're supposed to use that to bring us together and have these really hard conversations, and they're not having them.
So let's have a hard conversation now. So what should leadership have done to assist those who wanted to peacefully protest? What would you do if it were you?
They should have went in. There's a plan on how to deal with agitators. You go in, you immediately extract them from the protest or from the group. It wasn't even a protest. They were out there to be heard. They were out there trying to make their voices heard. And somebody started violence. So you go in and you extract them and you allow it to go on. You allow people the room to have their actions be paid attention to. And those actions got totally dismantled by violence. Mm-hmm. So there's an ongoing cycle of violence right now. And it's hard to come back from that. So now all those voices are being drowned out. And they're trying to hit those spots with the peaceful protests. But law enforcement is now detracting, and that comes from policy created by our leadership. So that policy needs to change.
Do you think somehow or another law enforcement is going to say that somehow your comments or your perspective on the situation doesn't support, them?
Not the line officer. The actual police officer on the street understands it in the biggest way. They understand exactly what's going on because they're the ones that are on the street interacting. They're the ones that are trying to help. Law enforcement's there to help, but they're not there to cause the problem. They just want to allow the things that are supposed to happen. It's the administrators, and of course they aren't going to agree with me at all, or they won't. They won't publicly. They will just fall in line with the mayor because you have one of two things going on. You are either running a policy-driven police department, or you're running a police department that's gone completely rogue. If your police department's completely rogue, you failed as a leadership by not fixing it. Or your policies are being perfectly ran, and those are complete and abject failures. We're looking at one or the other, and I don't believe it's a rogue police department. Police officers are doing everything they can to try to create an atmosphere where they are inclusive into our impoverished or lesser neighborhoods. It's the administration that's not allowing it to happen.
So let me ask you this question to be fair. I just recently saw where Mayor Peduto had put into effect some very new policies that were dealing with the police and how they interact with the community. Do you think he did enough? Do you think that's a step in the right direction? What is your response to that?
I don't believe they're driven towards the mission. When you put forth those efforts, I see them as being very dishonest, because the way that the mayor looks at law enforcement is not as the face of government and the tools to use to prevent crime or to prevent people from being victims. So when you start withdrawing the police, and we'll say the defunding and restructuring of the monies that go to the police department, they're very, very, very dishonest, because most of those things are being done right now at the highest level. We've been teaching procedural justice to our recruits for over 5 years. We've been teaching crisis intervention and de-escalation. I teach de-escalation in the crisis intervention class. So
are you referring to verbal judo?
It's not verbal judo. My class is de-escalation, verbal de-escalation. Okay. Now, verbal judo is something that is used. They don't even teach that anymore. It's just shifted in how they do it. But we do that already. Banning chokeholds is something that's already there. We don't teach chokeholds. And to say that you're not going to ever use a chokehold is completely dishonest, because when you're fighting for your life, anything's going to happen. But to use a chokehold as part of as a self-defense or a policy to arrest somebody with force, it's already not done. So that's dishonest for our administrators in the police department to not come out and say that. To say that we don't use social services inside the police department is completely dishonest, and that we have to do it over. We have to restart that. It's already in place. We do those things.
So let me say this to you. I mean, obviously you and I, we've had a long history together, but there's something of the blue line, right? I mean, so a police officer who is about to make an arrest, or who is making an arrest, and he uses excessive force on John Doe, and police officer B is watching it. So what do you do when police officer B never reports it up the chain of command? And therefore, even if you as mayor, want to correct these issues, your hands are tied if there's a unwritten custom in place where police officers won't tell on, their comrades or their colleagues. So how do you correct that? Because to me, that seems like one of the bigger issues that is not just going to face Peduto, but if you get elected, it's going to face your administration as well.
Well, when I get elected, it's a leadership issue, Todd. It's that top-down leadership, and when there's a culture of not disciplining officers for the things that they're doing in that aspect. Use of force is a big deal, but there's also a misunderstanding of how force is supposed to be used. There's no conversation and there's no education about how force is supposed to be used. What it looks like isn't always what is actually happening. So when you have an officer stepping out and they are constantly using force the wrong way, and it's not always just using force, it's acting in a way that is not conducive to law enforcement the way that we want law enforcement run. It's the inner circle of police officers that this department runs in. It's the old boys network. It runs from top down. So they don't discipline these officers who are taking advantage of the fact that they can run the gamut however they want to. As a matter of fact, we fail up in that way. Right now, we have a assistant chief who's been found to have committed civil rights violations against their own officers, and the city had to pay them. And that person was promoted. It happens all the time, and that has to stop. There is no accountability in our police department. When the officer sees that, they operate in how they understand they succeed. So if you can get away with those things, you just continue about your pattern of abuse.
Well, I get that. I mean, we understand what the problem is, but the question that I have for you is, how do you change it?
Well, you take that officer and you seclude them. There's union protections, and I know that's difficult because the union is there. We all want to make sure that we're treated fairly, but a lot of times it's hard to fire those officers. Now,
more often than not.
Oh yeah. We both know that.
More often
what
than
you
not.
do is you take them away. You take them out of the public purview. You don't let them interact anymore. You have to take them and remove them from their ability to act that way. And then you start targeting them. And eventually that takes them out of the picture. It takes them out of law enforcement because you have to set up that standard. You have a standard we have to live by. And if you don't operate under that standard, then we're going to strip you of it. But it's identifying it.
Do you think the FOP would essentially support your views?
Yes. I know that Robert Schwartzwalder would. He has a responsibility to protect his officers, but he's also a police officer that has a responsibility to the community.
Okay.
Now, in that, there is a fractured segment inside of our union because they are falling in line with the current administration. They don't want to lose what they have, and that's what really is what all this is about. People act the way they do because they want to keep their positions of power. And I don't disagree there. And that's the problem. I don't come from that. I'm an outsider stepping into this city and into the police department, and I succeeded at a high level, but I was shut out. I was shut out of those groups. And I'm glad I was, because it allowed me to operate the way that I knew was fair, that I knew I was going into communities and I was going to treat people with dignity and respect, and they were going to give that back to me. If you can understand and allow somebody to vent to you because you know that you're the face of the government, they're not yelling at Tony Moreno, the person. They're yelling at my patch and my badge and my uniform. That's what they're yelling at. That's what they're angry about. They don't like this system. It's broken. I see it, and that's why I'm here, because I'm going to change it.
Well, I mean, I like everything that you're saying. Have you had an opportunity to reach out to some of the civil rights activists and the other civil leaders and sort of, introduce yourself to them?
I haven't been. I'm going in the places that I know, the people that I know, to bring me into communities that won't know who I am, and that's why I'm reaching out to you, Todd, because I know that you know me. You know my heart. You've done cases with me where we have been completely honest with each other, and I feel you and you feel me. I get a lot of pushback because we're friends, but I don't care because I know why you do what you do for a good reason. And I support that 100% because we need that. So coming out, and I know it's going to be hard. A lot of people aren't going to like just me for what I've done in the past, and I'm going to be questioned about it. And I can have those answers, and we might not all fit the things that we want to do together 100%, but on those areas where we are going to come together, it's going to be important that we work together that way and just drive those things home. I'm not an activist, but I believe in the activism that needs to happen. So I need to get with some of these folks like Miss Fisher and talk to them and tell them where I'm coming from, because defunding the police isn't it. I know that it's a feeling that that's what they are seeing as an answer, but to realize what that's going to do, it's going to retract police officers, and I know who is still going to receive services. Those people out in Squirrel Hill are not going to go without their services. Some of those people in some of these neighborhoods aren't going to miss services. Who's going to get affected the worst? The underserved now. Our Black communities are going to suffer because there's an attitude that sits out there and says, you know what? And I've heard this with my own ears. They don't deserve our protection. We're going to go where they deserve it.
So you're saying that you've heard other people, I'm assuming police officers, say that the Black community does not deserve their protection.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I've been punished. I have personally been punished because I was told not to go to certain communities and enforce the law and to me, protect them. I was punished for doing it anyways. And my response was always, I need that in writing, because you can't tell me not to enforce the law. When you start qualifying crime, law enforcement gets spread unevenly. So there's a confusion right now in law enforcement. These young officers have no idea exactly how they're supposed to respond. So they're withdrawing and they're not responding at all. And we're seeing crime start to go up. There was a moment where it was coming down, but it's those attitudes that need to be stripped out and taken away. And I'm talking about people that were in leadership positions. So I've heard it. I know it's there.
So right now we're going through, probably one of the most, tremendous, changes in the history of my life, with COVID-19. Some people are saying that, the pandemic crisis is a liberally created hoax. And then there are others who are saying that, this is something that is going to change the norm that we were so accustomed to. You see on your timeline there, the great debate between people who are being asked to wear masks, in stores, versus people, who are not wearing masks and feel that it's an intrusion upon their social liberties. What is your position on that?
Well, it's what we have. We have it. There's no changing it. We don't have the ability to change it. So if the rule is wear a mask, then wear a mask. If somebody asks me to put a mask on, I walk in their store, I put it on. It's something that it's hard for me to understand. I don't know if it's a political thing. I know that there's a lot of people that have died because of it, and we need to take care of it. I was going out to places when I was donating masks to these homeless camps. It was odd to me that Operation Safety Net called and said, please don't go there. We're not going there because we don't know who's exposed. And my exact response was, that's why we are going there, because I've always served, you know what I mean? I give my life, my service to somebody else because that's just the way I am. So it didn't bother me to go in there with gloves and a mask on and interact with people and give to them because nobody else was doing that at the time. So
Sure.
whatever the politics of that is, I don't have a say in it. I'm trying to be the mayor of Pittsburgh. And as the mayor of Pittsburgh, if this were to come down from the governor, I would use everything I can to try to help keep people safe and keep these businesses operating, to keep people interacting. You know, that's something that I think is missing, is our interactions are being separated. So it's driving us apart instead of coming together. But it is a big tell. This crisis right now is showing exactly where our leaders stand. It's exposing the weakness in leadership.
So I've got like 3 minutes left in our show, and I know that there were some things that I wanted to talk to you about, but do you have a final word that you'd like to leave to our guests as to who, Tony Moreno is and what things you want to leave with them with respect to your election for mayor?
I think my biggest points right now are work. I was giving how I think that we need to start going forward. Of course, Pittsburgh is education and technology and healthcare, right? That's what we've become. But we've seen now what happens when we can't move our products overseas. We need manufacturing here, and there's no reason why we can't develop it here and make it here. So if we could start training our young people, even the people who don't work, we make available for them to be able to get driver's licenses and teach people to drive. It gives mobility. If we give them the opportunity to start earning in trades. I was telling this to somebody that was politically connected, and they're like, we already did that. They didn't take advantage. I'm like, well, legislation doesn't do anything. If you just say, yeah, we want to have this done, doesn't mean that those relationships build out. The relationships in the trades right now are all based on who you know. So as the city of Pittsburgh, we need to take that over. We need to fund it and put our people in it, put our community in those trades. Even right now out in East Liberty and Homewood, they have the Pittsburgh Trades training. They built they bought a building out there. Man, that is a magic program. I want to do that exactly that way with every single plumbing, every single union-based organization. Have those trainings out all over the city, open them up. I don't care if you came out of jail or you walked out. They just bought 4 homes because people were having a problem finding a place to live coming out of jail. Man, these guys come in, they get trained, they get together, they teach them how to run a spreadsheet, they get them bank accounts, and they get them jobs. Man, there's nothing more powerful than a man who has a job. Crime goes down when you work, when you own. You can buy those houses instead of selling them or letting them be auctioned off. You can be mobile. If you want to start your own business, you can go and do that. That's where it's at. That's how I see it, Todd. That'll bring us everything together, because right now we're separated. When you talk about 2 Pittsburghs, it's there. I see it. There are 2 Pittsburghs, and it's wrong. The only time we come together is on Steelers Sunday. We're all in the same place. We're all cheering for the same thing. Everybody's high-fiving, fist bumping. Then come Monday morning, we're staring at each other across the street. That's because there's a separation. That's where our likenesses end. Well, we need to have more of that. We need to come together, and I want people to understand I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm going to make it happen, because without that, we're still going to be housing people up in Bedford dwellings, and I don't want that. We can't have it. We can't. The fact that these people are sitting there talking about institutional racism and we have to end it, they are they're talking about. They single-handedly can end that by stopping everything they're doing and focusing on what they want done. If they wanted to put people to work and move them out of housing and get them ownership, they can do it. They choose not to because of control. So that's really what I want to hit home.
Pittsburgh, I want to introduce you to mayoral candidate Tony Moreno, my friend who I've known for 20 plus years, who I personally have the utmost respect for. I urge you to get to know him. He has a Facebook page. Tony, what's your Facebook page?
It's Tony Moreno. It's funny because my last name in Spanish means dark or brown, and I can't be any whiter. But it's Tony Moreno for mayor of Pittsburgh. My Facebook page is Tony Moreno. It's spelled Moreno, Moreno, like Rita or Omar. And I have a website. It's realsteelmayor.com, realsteelmayor.com, hashtag realsteelmayor. That's me. I'm the real steel mayor because this mayor doesn't represent Pittsburgh, and I think I do. So check me out.
So, definitely Pittsburgh, hit Tony up. He's very approachable. I'm sure, he looks forward to meeting you. He mentioned Brandy Fisher. So Brandy, if you're listening, hit Tony up, get to know him. I encourage you to do that. And hey, Tony, look, man, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate you being on this show. I wish you, much success in your candidacy, the election for mayor. Certainly, if you'd like to come back on my show, I have an open door policy. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Civil Action. It means so much, all the many places that you could be in the world that you're here with me. And with that, be safe, through all this this COVID, craziness. And we hope to hear from you soon. So from my heart to you, God bless. Take care.
We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because